So how medicine is broken and how we can fix it is the punchline quote from Ben Goldacre's international bestseller, Bad Pharma. This book went on to cause and create 2 parliamentary committees, and it's the ethos that I've applied to my PhD. So the topic is perianal Crohn's fistula. In the context, fistula referred to an abnormal connection between your bowel and your buttock. And patients with Crohn's disease, which is a type of inflammatory bowel disease, have this watering can appearance to their bottom. There are 4 key elements of designing a clinical trial. They're population, knowing your intervention, deciding your control group, and deciding which outcomes you're going to measure. So in order to tackle the first of this, we looked at a large national database. We looked at it over 15 years. We identified our population for Crohn's disease and also our control through this. But we took it that step further. We decided to look at the positive and negative predictive successes, so which patients did well, which patients did not do well, and put these into kind of an algorithm. And this is the first step towards personalising healthcare. The second thing we wanted to do is identify which was the best treatment. And we did this by looking at the last 5 years of clinical trials. We identified 50 studies, and we looked to see which is the best treatment. But we weren't able to meta-analyse our data. And the reason being, there were 400 different outcomes that studies were using. So there were 300 doctors and 300 patients who came together to define the core outcome set. This is the standardized outcome set that we believe all international trials should use when studying this condition. The process took 2 years, but it's finally over, and it's now going to redefine success in this particular field. Whilst looking at outcomes, we found there was a paucity in objective and hard outcomes. What I mean by that is pain is very subjective. Different people have different pain thresholds. So we decided to create an MRI score, which looked at volumes of the fistula tract. This, for the first time, allowed us to look at pre- and post-treatment scans and look at percentage volume reduction. Again, we took this forward again to personalise this element. We knew that some patients have better responses to some treatments than others. We wanted to see on the first scan, could we predict who would have a really good response? And we were able to do that. This has 2 advantages. Firstly, to your patients, because now they can go on the right treatment. And secondly, to the NHS, because some of these treatments cost tens of thousands of pounds. The very last thing we did was look at a way of improving general understanding, and we did this using 3D modelling, both in the physical sense of a 3D printout, but also animations on the computer screen. There are 3 end users who would benefit from this. Number 1 is your patients in clinic when you're explaining the really difficult operation to them. They can finally truly understand what you mean. Secondly, our medical students who sit in this room learning about this condition. And thirdly, to surgeons like me sitting in our operating theatre. We can now receive this as an app on our phone. We can plan our operations, minimising our operative time and risk to patients. So I'd like to conclude by saying we've concluded.